Okay, so in this video, we're going to get weather from a specific location and get a outfit from AI. So this is going to be a very cool lesson, kind of the best tutorial in the series in my opinion. The first thing we're going to want to do is get the weather for a specific location. We're going to use a WeatherAPI, and the name of it is WeatherAPI.com. So if you go to WeatherAPI.com/pricing, I'll have the link in the description, and you get started with a free account. It's plenty of bandwidth to work with, especially for this project. So create a free account. Do that now. After you've created a free account and logged in, at the top of the page, once you log in, the dashboard, you should see your API key. So copy that. We're going to add that into the settings file right now. So if we go back into our code and go into our settings project config settings.py, and then we can scroll up to the top. We're just going to add it somewhere to the top up here. We will create a kind of constant variable called WeatherAPI key equals, and then right here is where you would paste in your API key. I'm going to include mine at the bottom of the page so to hide it, but you would paste yours in right there and then click save. And then we're going to want to install a package to use this WeatherAPI. We're going to be sending HTTP requests, so we're going to need the request package. So if you stop your server and go pip install requests like so, make sure your environment is activated. Great, so requests is downloaded. So now we're going to want to get our OpenAI key for our AI usage. So if you go to platform.openai.com, I'll leave a link in the description, and you sign up and create an account. You may need to put a little bit of money into this account to use this. I would say a few dollars should work. Otherwise, there might be promotions going on through them where they give you some credits when you. So after you sign up, there should be a menu item at the top called Dashboard. And then on the left side menu down here, you should see something called API Keys. And then you can click Create a new secret key and copy that key. We will be using it. So head back over into our settings.py, and right below the WeatherAPI key, you can type OpenAI API key and then paste in your API key here. And again, I'm including mine at the bottom of this file just for privacy reasons, but you can include yours right here. So paste. Okay, so now that you have that updated, the next thing we're going to want to do is download or install this OpenAI package. So pip install OpenAI like so. Okay, so we have the OpenAI library downloaded. Perfect. So now that's everything that we needed to kind of download and all the keys that we need. The next thing we're going to want to do now is create the actual template and the views for this stylist. So let's first create the template. So under core templates, core, let's create another file. We'll call this stylist.html. Now we can build out this page. So we'll add a header tag and we'll say AI weather based wardrobe stylist. We're going to want to have two kind of sections to this page. The top portion will be a form to enter your location, and the bottom portion will be the results once you fill out the form to get the outfit. So at the top we'll have a form. The action will be to a URL that we will call, the top portion will be a form to the URL that we will call stylist, like so. And the method here will be get, because we're not actually posting any data or making any changes to the database. So we're going to be making a get request. It'll still have the location, it just won't be a post method. Now inside the form, we're going to have two inputs, a text field to enter the location. So the name will be location, the ID will be location, and we'll add a placeholder that will be enter your location, city or zip code. We'll have another input that is a submit button that will say get outfit. Then below the form, we're going to want to check to see if we have results, and then we're going to want to display them. So we're going to first have an if for something called weather, which will be just the weather of the location that is entered above. So if weather, and then we want to end the if. Then if we do have weather, we're going to want to display it. So we'll create a div, we'll add a h4, and then we will just output the weather. Below that, we're going to want to check if we have an outfit. So if outfit, which is what the AI generated outfit would, we'll call it in context. And then we end the if, then we will display the outfit. So we'll create a div and then an h4, your personalized outfit based on the weather is, and then we'll add a paragraph tag and we will output the AI generated output. Awesome. So this is our template now, a form to get the location and then the actual results. So now let's actually create the view. So if we go back to our views.py, below clothing delete, we can create a new view, but we first need to import a couple items. So we can import them at the top, or we can just import them right here. Import requests, import OpenAI. So these are the two libraries we downloaded, and then we want to also from config.settings import the API keys. So that is OpenAI API key, and then WeatherAPI key, like so. So you could include them at the top. I thought I would include them here just so that they stay on the screen. And then we can define this function, and we'll just call it Stylist, this view, and pass in the request. And then we're going to want to check to see if we have a location in the request get dictionary. So if somebody filled out the form, pressed enter, the request get object will have the location. And then we're going to want to send that to the Weather API and then send that to the AI and get a response. So we're going to first check and say that location equals request.get location, otherwise just empty string. We'll create the context now to be an empty dictionary, and we'll create the stylist response, which will be kind of like the AI response, to be an empty string. And we're going to want to check if location above is not empty. So if somebody actually submitted a location, then let's first get all the clothes into a list from our closet. So we're going to want to pass those to AI. So we'll say all clothes equals, we're going to turn the query set that's returned from Django into a list. So we'll say list of clothing.objects.all.values list. So we just get the values, and we just want the title, and flat equals true. So this is gonna get the query set of all the items, just get the values for the title field, and it's going to be flat. There's only going to be one dimension, just the title. So it's basically going to be a list, and we're going to turn it into a Python. Then we're going to want to call the Weather API to get the weather data. So we're going to say Weather API URL equals, and then we'll create an F string here, and it's going to be http://api.weatherapi.com/v1/current.json question mark. So these are all going to be query parameters now. Key equals, and then we will inject the Weather API key, and then we're going to add another query parameter. So and Q, the query is going to be the location. Perfect. So we have our URL, and then we're going to want to use the request library to send a request, get request to the Weather API URL. Now we can check to see if the response is valid, what the status code is, and things like that, but I will omit that for the time being, and we can just say weather JSON equals the response.json, like so. So this will be the actual response body, the response that we get from the API. Now we have the weather, but now let's call OpenAI to get an AI generated outfit with the above weather and the above clothes. So we'll say this will be the call OpenAI. So we'll want to create a client equals OpenAI, the package .OpenAI, and we pass in the API underscore key equals the OpenAI key from settings. Okay, now let's actually prompt and response the OpenAI client that we have now created. So we'll save response to response, and this will be client.response.is.create. We're going to want to specify the model. So model equals, and then in this case it's GPT 4.1-mini. This is a small model. It's pretty inexpensive to call. Obviously you can use whatever model you would like. add a comma because we're also going to pass in the input, which we'll use an F string, and this is where we're actually going to create the prompt. So we're going to give it a prompt and we're going to pass in the clothing items and the weather. So give me a full outfit, only choosing items from my wardrobe. The full outfit should be based on the current weather and be as stylish, if I can spell, as possible. The current weather is, and then we're going to pass in that weather. It's going to be weather JSON, the variable where we store the response, and we're going to access current and then temp underscore F to get the temperature in Fahrenheit. And we'll say F for Fahrenheit. So this will pass in the temperature and is, and this will be the actual weather itself, like sunny, rainy, etc. So we'll say weather JSON, current condition text. And I just looked at the response that we got from the Weather API to know how to traverse through the kind of JSON object. Now let's say my wardrobe and pass in all clothes. So now we're giving it access to all the clothes that we have, and we only want it to return the outfit text followed by one sentence explaining your choices. Okay. So that's the whole prompt. Now we can basically take this response and pass it to context. So we'll redefine context and we will say the weather is an F string, and this is the weather that will display above the actual output. So we'll say current weather in weather underscore JSON current name, so the name of the city is weather underscore JSON current temp underscore F. We have to shimmy around these brackets a little bit. F, and the condition is, again, curly brackets, weather underscore JSON current condition text. And then we will say dot lower so that it looks normal within this, and then we'll add the trailing period. And finally, we just have to return this. So we'll return render, we'll pass in the request. We will let it know where our template is, stylist.html, and then we will pass in the context. The final thing we have to do is set up a URL so it knows when to run this view, run this function. So we'll come down here and we will add another path. We will say this is the empty path. This will be views.stylist. And then the name equals, and we will call it stylist like so, and remember the trailing comma. Awesome, so we have the view, the URL, and the template all set up. Now let's go ahead and run the server. Now let's navigate back to our root URL, because we have an error. And I like to work through some of these errors real time so that we see just how to debug things. It looks like it didn't return anything. So I'm going to go to the view and see what we're returning. And it looks like this is just nested too deeply. So if location, well, we don't have a location the first time we load, so we just want this to return this page at the top level. Click refresh, and awesome. So now we actually get this form, blank form. We don't see anything because we haven't entered a location. If you enter a location, choose any location you want, we see it's loading at the top, and we see another error. So GOT 4.1 mini, this looks like a typo. This should be GPT. So if we hop back into the code and scroll up to where we make the request, this should be GPT. Click save, and again, let's try this again. I like to include these errors just because things happen all the time, and so this is how we can debug them right within Django. One final error, hopefully final error, weather_JSON current name, but I don't think it's actually, name is not nested under current, name is under location, and so again I would just look at what the API object responds with and traverse it that way. So if we go back to the code and we go back to our weather and we update this to be location, and I already see another error that we might get. We don't have the outfit response in context. So if we go to here and add a comma and then add outfit, and then we want the response dot output underscore text. Click save. So that'll give us this response here, dot output text. Now click save. So hopefully we squash those two things and go back to the browser. And now we refresh this page. Amazing. So we debug those in real time and we get the current weather is 61 Fahrenheit and is partly cloudy. The personalized outfit, drum roll please, is a blue gym shirt, blue jeans, and white gym sneakers. Now I don't have that much clothes in my closet on the application, so hopefully you had more and it would give you a better outfit or something maybe more unique. But this outfit strikes a comfortable balance for the weather and is casual, breathable, yada yada yada. So this is awesome. We could obviously type in a different location like Miami. I don't have that many items in this closet again, but we can tell that it's loading at the top. It's hot, it's 89 degrees. It's telling me to wear my gym shirt, blue jeans, and sneakers again. Maybe if I had shorts, it would be something else. But this is very cool in my opinion. We're taking information stored in the database, getting real-time information from the Weather API, and using AI all together. So you could stop here. You could customize this how you like. In the next video and final video for this series, we're going to be styling this with Tailwind CSS to make it look kind of pretty. I look forward to seeing you in that video.